While our speakers take their position, ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome all of you to the first in a series of discussions on open access across the country organized by IPPAI. I'm going to request the panelists to, in order to save time, to join us as I speak. A couple of housekeeping announcements, if I may. The agenda today is very simple. The agenda is to look at open access from various aspects and then from the various perspectives of different parts of the stakeholders in the power community and to see what is the way forward. I want to also make a couple of announcements on housekeeping since everybody is here, because post-lunch some of you have told planning to leave. We have created the Open Access Forum. A lot of consumers of electricity who would like to avail of open access or have availed of open access may want further information, clarifications on procedures, on regulatory policies across the country. The forum is now going to support in a cerebral manner all consumers, whoever wants help in understanding the limitations and the issues in open access or availing of open access. We also have IPPAI, which is the IPPAI Regulatory Research Institute, which has been set up in Belgaum in Karnataka. There is a course there in November on contracts, PPAs, and issues related to open access. So I don't know if you're aware, there's been a recent Supreme Court judgment which says that PPAs can be renegotiated by discoms and others. So that, to our minds, is a very important hot subject. Those of you who'd like to further deliberate after today on the future strategies, business growth strategies for open access, like to take advantage of that and register yourself. Then we have the support today is given to us by RIPB. This is an Irish company which is given a software platform to encourage people who have a requirement for power or want to sell power. It's basically a platform which you need to, like OLX. I don't know if you know about OLX. You want to sell an old washing machine or you want to buy power, you just put it there, and if somebody comes forward and says, I'll supply you power, they can. And, so it's a simple, a very open-ended platform for people who want to take advantage of it. I'm given to understand by the company that they have an India helpline, which is activated or about to be activated. Whenever you feel like posting a quantum of a requirement or you want to sell power, just post it on it. Or maybe just want information, you can do that. May I request our Dr. Dhaul, and I'm going to call them in order of the sequence. Mr. Suhas Tulsapurkar, Mr. Sandeep Guram, Yunus Abbas Mullah from Bosch, Justin CG from Hindalco, Mr. Soni, Abhijit Deshpande, and Dipali Sheth. While our expert speakers take their position, a quick introduction to some of you who are not familiar with the stalwarts that are here. Let me start with Dr. Dhaul. Can you open it? Dr. Dhaul is, has been and is, to my mind, the oldest regulator in India, serving regulator. He was chairman of the Maharashtra Energy Regulatory Commission. And after that, for almost 5 years, he was the regulator for the Central Energy Regulatory Commission. So he brings to the table enormous amount of expertise on regulation, has seen the growth of the sector right from its early inception days, 2004, 2005, 2006, till today, brings to the table enormous amount of knowledge and experience on regulation, and also is fully aware about the challenges that the industry faces. He's also our mentor for our IPRI initiative along with Professor S.L. Rao in Belgaum. The next speaker is Suhas Tulsapurkar, who is, I'm just following this agenda. I hope all of you have it. Please follow it. Suhas is the Managing Director of Legacy Services and a very renowned lawyer with tremendous experience. I'm not going to say more. You're going to hear him and you'll find him fascinating. Himanshu Agarwal is DGM from Century Rayon, one of the big industrial groups in the country, and he's going to share his thoughts as a consumer. Sandeep Gurung is coming from Technova Imaging Systems, again, a consumer, so we'll hear different consumer perspectives. We also have Yunus Abbas Mullah Sahab from Bosch Chassis in Pune. I'm going to share his thoughts. And then we have somebody from Hindalco, Justin CG. Justin CG, are you here? Ah, there you are. Great. And S.K. Soni, sir, another man who needs no introduction to those who understand. I'm a great admirer of Mr. Soni. I've been knowing him for almost 20 years. We used to sit down and discuss the game theories when he was the general manager in SRLDC, if he remembers that. And he's a great, great mind, not just in electricity, but in market dynamics, economics, and how the game theory works. Besides being one of the inceptors of what you see today as the scheduling and the systems and the dynamics and all of those aspects of the power sector which are fascinating, Mr. Soni is also the chair or the head of POSOCO, which sits in Delhi and regulates the flow of electrons across the country. To my mind, having him here today is extremely important for us to understand. And I would like to, at this point, also add that some of the disconnects between what we do on interstate scheduling of power to consumers who are availing open access versus intrastate also is an interesting thing because of formats and forms, etc. We'll go into that in detail later. Abhijit Deshpande is one of the our favorite persons in MSCDCL. He's a director operations, a dear friend, and also somebody whom I admire for a lot of things. But one of the things I admire is his smile and his patience in spite of high stress. He wanted to ask me whether, or somebody wanted to ask me, should he wear an armored gear when he comes and faces the consumers today? But I must say, no, that's not necessary. We are all from the industrial sector. We do have our problems and we'll be happy to share them and hear you. But sir, we are very, very grateful that you're here representing your managing director. It only goes to show that MSCDCL is not shying away from trying to understand and trying to accommodate and trying to help consumers and industry. It would have been very easy for them to say, sorry, we don't attend these things and step out. But I'm very, very happy that thanks to the fact that Managing Director Saab is not keeping good health for the last 2 days, he is here representing him. Thank you very much, and we appreciate your presence. And we won't take full advantage of it, of course. Dipali Sheth is the founder of Eternity Legal. I love the word eternity because legal people are going to be practicing eternally. This sector, according to me, is going to be the largest contributor to the legal fraternity. But Dipali, on a serious note, has been a very important player in the Maharashtra, the landscape. I'm grateful that you're here, ma'am, and we look forward to hearing from you. You've been very active on this situation. The way the program is structured is we've given it a mix between different speakers and consumers and the system operators. And then Dr. Dhaul is going to give his closing remarks on the session. And post-lunch, we have a very interesting session. To those of you who are planning to sleep or disappear, I'd just like to throw open the issue. When you move renewable energy on an interstate basis, it has to be scheduled in 15-minute time blocks. And when it is scheduled in 15-minute time blocks, I'm given to understand that that changes the character of the energy from renewable to brown energy or conventional energy. And therefore, the state which is perhaps buying it loses its advantage of having an RPO obligation met, etc., etc. I would love to have Mr. Soni educate us on that itself as we go along in his speech. We have Professor Soman from the Indian Institute of Technology, a great mind. Thank you, Professor Soman, for being here. And we have Ashok Pense, Chairman and Energy of TSSIA. We have Chintan Shah from Suzlon. I don't see him right now, but he should be here shortly. Raghvendra Mehta from Reliance Infrastructure. Mr. Pratap Hogade, who is the President of the Maharashtra State Energy Consumer Association. Welcome to you, sir. And of course, Mr. V.P. Raja, who's the former chairman of MERC, a great mover of new ideas, innovation during his time as the chairman. Welcome. We welcome you, sir. And at the end of it all, we have two little enclosures, if you like, at the end, where you can meet IPPAI team members and share if there is something else that you wanted or if there's something more that you want for a B2B session. Now, that's the end of my housekeeping remarks. I'm going to just draw your attention to a little more housekeeping remarks. The whole idea of this conference will not make sense unless you have this in your hand. And this is an important document because this is what is going to be alluded to the whole day today. If you have a look at this document, it basically looks at promoting consumer choice in the Indian power sector, and it gives you data and information about MSEDCL, particularly, and also about some other states on what is happening on cross-subsidy surcharge and what's happening on the cost and the open access challenges that are happening. This is pretty important. We've also tried to capture in a very small nutshell the important provisions of the national tariff policy on page 20, which talks about how, to our mind, cross-subsidy surcharge and electricity duty perhaps are interchangeable. Perhaps are interchangeable. So this is just flagging one point for further discussion. The national tariff policy suggests that electricity duty is a better way of doing it rather than cross-subsidy surcharge. There are also judgments and issues related to reduction of cross-subsidy surcharge rather than increase in cross-subsidy surcharge. It's a very interesting point because the Regulatory Commission is about to come out with its orders on additional surcharge, cross-subsidy surcharge increases, tariff increases. So this is a very interesting moment where we are, and electricity duty, of course, is there already in the system. So this is an interesting time for you to figure out whether open access is going to survive or whether this is going to be the first and the last conference and nobody else will attend the next one, etc., etc. There are some points on the electricity duty, which is there right after page 31. It's added there. It's an extract. On electricity duty, there is a Supreme Court judgment 2002, NTPC versus Andhra Pradesh, which says that if there's an interstate movement of goods, no state can impose any tax on it. And this was in the context of Andhra Pradesh imposing a tax on the Ramagundam super thermal power station. That's another interesting judgment. There's another judgment, those of you who are making notes, Tata Motors versus Bihar, again about intrastate versus interstate movement of goods, etc. And there are many other judgments we'd be happy to share with you. There's also IPPAI legal. Some people may be here. They've been very busy running around. But IPPAI legal is also available in case you need some advice and some references on the judgments that you want on this scenario. I'm sorry, my housekeeping issues don't seem to end. But this brochure here, I'm pointing this out because it's going to be very short and quick. This brochure here lists out what Dr. Pramod Deo as our mentor and blesses is the institute which basically provides various courses and various subjects in the power sector. a good flag for you all to have in case any of you are interested in capacity building within your company. We have two other brochures which you can refer to. One, of course, is as I mentioned, the Irish platform, the RIPP, and the challenges of open access for power consumers, in IPPAI Open Access Consumer Forum. So without further ado, I'm going to get into my remarks, and then I'm going to leave the battleground for the stalwarts to take on. For those of you who not had a chance to, one sec, how do I start this? For those of you who have not had a chance to, I'd like to share this with you that I've been associated with the power sector since 1986. I basically come from an industrial background, and in the industrial background, I was running my own industry, and I set up one industry in Karnataka where I realized I didn't get electricity. There were very strange things happening there. And with the result, I moved on to buying electricity for the first time in 1986 and for my cement plant. And having bought electricity in 1986 through a very bright notification issued by a brilliant engineer who we lost last month, called Dr. Rudrappa. I'd like to pay homage to him. I actually bought electricity for the first time for my cement plant. And that is when I realized the challenges, problems, etc. of buying through open access electricity. And then that moved on to us getting involved in two sides of electricity, demand side management and supply side management. So from 86 to 2016 is a fairly reasonable amount of time. I'm not saying I know anything much. I'm still a student of the subject. But I was involved when in 89, 90, the government decided to open up the economy. And during those periods of time, there was a lot of activity, 90, 91, in the Ministry of Power, trying to work out ways and means of attracting investments in the power sector. And I think this is very important for us to have a look today in 2016, because I think we are at a very important inflection point in all our lives and in the lives of the power sector and the consumers in this country. We brought in investments into the power sector thinking that all that we need to do is to bring in money and increase generation, and everything else will fall into place. And for a number of years, we went through the 90s, we went through the Enron Dhaul experience, we went through the Cogentrix in Karnataka, we went through the various fast-track projects. We as IPPAI got involved in 92, where we started pushing investments into India. And having come by that time from a demand-side background, we had set up India's first demand-side energy conservation company. We began to see the synergy between the two. So right through the 90s, we saw ups and downs in investments. We saw a huge surge in the 94, 95, 98 era. 99, 2000 industry, IPPIs were dead. We were called dinosaurs. Again, the BJP government happened to be there. They revived it under a brilliant man who's no more with us, the Honorable Minister, Mr. Kumaramangalam, whom I happen to have interacted a lot with. Found the man to be dynamic, honest, sincere, driven. He started 4 things: the Regulatory Act, the Conservation Act, and the Electricity Act 2001. Originally, it was Electricity Act 2001, became 2003 by the time it was pushed through. Unfortunately, we lost him. But the fact of the matter remains. There was a lot of debates and discussions at that time. How do you bring in competition? How do you bring in private sector into a state-controlled, government-controlled economy? And what are the challenges? So we decided to bring in the sector in the easy part. That was the generation part. But the Electricity Act 2003 has clauses, has provisions under various sections where the spirit of the Electricity Act has been talked about. And I'm going to go straight to it. I'm going to take a minute to read this. This is very important before we start the day. The statement of objectives and reasons of the Act includes creation of a central and state electricity regulatory commission. Fair enough. And over a period of time, it talks about all the objects. And with the policy encouraging private participation in generation, transmission, and distribution, and the objective of distancing the regulatory responsibilities from the government to the regulatory commissions, the need for harmonizing and renationalizing the provisions of the Indian Electricity Act 1910 and the Supply Act 1948. The Regulatory Commission Act of 1998 in a new self-contained comprehensive legislation arose. Government wanted to distance itself from a regulator, from this kind of decision making by creating a regulatory commission. In simple language, you need a regulator or a traffic constable if there's traffic, and the traffic was to bring in private sector. And that is the spirit of the Act. It became necessary to enact a new legislation for regularizing electricity. Now, the important point for today's discussion is that it is permitting, the Electricity Act is permitting open access. And open access is not about cross subsidies or anything else, it's about giving a choice to a consumer. And to me, who is a student of the subject till today, because these are all experts, I say, I need to have a choice. If I want to fly from Mumbai to Delhi, I must have a choice. If I want to use Vodafone or Airtel, I must have a choice. Similarly, in electricity terms, I need to have a choice whom I want to buy power from. And that's exactly what was contemplated. And I'm happy to note that, or I'm lucky to say that I was associated with the Ministry of Power and the NCAR deliberations across the country, where we went along as IPPAI and listened to various stakeholders in various parts of the country and took their views on board, had debates, had discussions, and that is how the Act was finally cleared and passed. Now, the issue here at hand is, today, after 2003, June 2003, we are sitting now in 2016. What exactly has gone wrong, or what exactly has not worked? What has not worked is the simple fact that the DISCOMs, whether they are private or public, have been put into a corner of sorts. On the one hand, they have been asked to serve the poorer sections of society, or the agricultural sections, or the rural sections, or shall we say the lesser privileged sections of society which need energy. In a country like ours, we would be foolish to think that only those who can pay should get electricity, because then you're looking at a huge, not only have-not material divide, but also electronic divide besides a digital divide and education divide and so on and so forth. Is going to create all kinds of law and order problems, etc. Now, they are obligated to do that on the one side. On the other side, they're supposed to give the open access to consumers. So when I talk to my friends in the electricity industry across the country, they turn around and say, listen guys, we have to give subsidized support, because the entire structure of the power sector today is based on cross subsidies. The paying consumer is subsidizing the non-paying consumers. I'll give you an interesting example. I live in South Mumbai. My electricity bill has a component to support the BEST, the best transport system. And this is a legacy issue. Now, I keep arguing that the fellow is sitting from Andheri and going to Warsaw. He's not even in South Mumbai. And why should I have to pay money for that? But then my argument falls flat, because that is the fact of a legacy which I have to live with. And so, I don't know what the latest numbers are, 200, 400, 600 crores every year, or maybe 1,000 crores is collected from consumers of South Mumbai to subsidize the whole of Mumbai in terms of transport. So similarly, the structure of the entire industry, whether it's Maharashtra or otherwise, is based on subsidizing the paying consumer, subsidizing the, shall we say, the lesser paying consumer. Now this balance also the DISCOMs have been able to manage so far. However, with the coming in of open access, 2-3 things have happened. And I just want to flag these issues because they will be discussed in detail by the experts. The first thing that has happened is that the number of open access has risen up. And Maharashtra, being one of the largest systems in the country, has had a largest number of open access transactions happening. It's not that it's not happening in other parts of the country also, it is happening. The second problem that we are facing is, in the case of Maharashtra, is the fact that there are needs for cross-subsidizing certain parts of the state, which is something which the government has taken a view on. Now that hole also has to be fulfilled. So the question that comes is the first person in the firing line of a machine gun in this is going to be the open access consumer or the open access chap or the private sector. Now let's go to the private sector point of view. I just have 2 points to say. There is, whether you read the RBI reports, whether you read the economic surveys, whether you listen to foreign investors talking about the Indian economy, let's face it, demand is not picking up in the economy. There is a worldwide recession. And if I tomorrow want to pass a fatwa and stop all open access, what am I doing? I'm actually, in the name of helping those underprivileged consumers, creating a new class of jobless, unemployed industrial consumers who have no jobs. Forget about the electricity part. They will not have jobs. Why? Because industry cannot sustain the kind of pressure that is being put on them in any case. And if they have exercised the option of going in for open access, it may be in a lot of cases a question of survival. Whether it's steel, whether it's aluminium, whether it is petrochemicals, whether it is cement, these are all energy intensive industries. And these energy intensive industries, if you look at the barometer of cost of production versus their total cost selling price, you'll find it's pretty high. So slight tweaking of the numbers can actually destroy their industry. Now that is their point of view. We're also going to listen to the regulators and we're also going to listen to the lawyers. So without further ado, let me now call upon the first speaker who can share his thoughts with us for today as per the agenda. Let me see if I've left out anything the cross-subsidy surcharge is also there in your booklet. I don't want to waste too much time. It talks about various states right across the country. There's the additional surcharge. Now, there's one point I do want to make on additional surcharge. I don't know how the Regulatory Commission is viewing this. But if you look at the merit order dispatch, you will find that the new plants, which the PPAs that have been signed by MSEDCL, whether they're government or private, are more efficient. But merit order dispatch is on variable cost. However, when those plants get stranded, the fixed charge of those plants is high. Hypothetically, let me say the fixed charge of one plant is, for exaggeration, 2 rupees. Where the Mahagenco plant, which is not being scheduled, is called stranded also, his fixed charge is 20 paisa. Why? Because he's been there for 25 years, depreciation is very low, etc., etc., etc. So I don't know how the Regulatory Commission is going to balance this additional surcharge when they put. Are they going to take only the new chaps? Are they going to take the old chaps? Are they going to take an average? That is something which I'm sure they've applied their minds to and will come out with something reasonable and rational. My submission is this, that while under merit order dispatch, you have a variable cost component which you are considering. You're not considering the fixed charge. But to the DISCOM, there is a fixed charge penalty, and that penalty now may get transferred in some form to the open access consumer. Now, there is one more thing which is very interesting, is the open access form, which is there in the case of interstate and intrastate. I just want to very quickly share this. These forms are available in your documentation. We have deliberately printed them to understand and thank God Mr. Soni is here. You see, when you schedule power interstate, you basically have a point of injection and point of draw. Life is very simple. But when you do an intrastate transaction from an interstate generator, there is confusion. Why? Because the form says name of address of parties, seller and buyer. However, the form on column 12 says name of the trader, if any. So if I am sitting in the DISCOM, I am wondering if the power is coming from outside, seller should be generator and the buyer should be the consumer. But if there is a trader in between, there is no contract between the generator and the consumer. The contract between the trader and the consumer. So therefore, this confusion creates an issue which I thought I should flag for further discussions. Okay, a quick point on electricity duty. The lawyers are here, they will share their thoughts, but I just want to say one thing. The Electricity Duty Act 2016 has a very good intention. However, it does the following. It gives a description of the licensee as somebody who's got a license from the CERC. It does not distinguish distribution company versus trader in the what do you call it? Description. What do you call those things? Definitions. Now, this creates a problem in implementation of electricity duty. As a trader, I am obligated to collect electricity duty, but I don't know how to do it for a very simple reason that although clause C says, it's on the screen, it says prevailing rates of distribution company or licensee as per Schedule A, as the state government may either prospectively or retrospectively by notification, official gazette, blah, blah, blah. However, if you read carefully, the consumption tax or the consumption duty has been described as that of the licensee as per the regulation of the Regulatory Commission. If I as a trader am not regulated, then how does this apply to me? And this is something which idiots like me who are not lawyers like to ask. I'm like anybody else in this room who's a consumer trying to figure out the complications that are there. There is something very interesting in the National Tariff Policy of 2016 also, which I want to throw open again here at this seminar. It says that the National Tariff Policy, notified on the 28th of Jan, the state government can give subsidy to the extent they consider appropriate as per the provisions of Section 65. Direct subsidy, very important, is a better way to support the poorer categories of consumers than the mechanism of cross-subsidizing the tariff across the board. Subsidies should be targeted effectively and in a transparent manner. As a substitute of cross-subsidies, repeating, as a substitute of cross-subsidies, the state government has the option of raising resources through mechanism electricity duty and giving direct subsidies to only the needy consumers. This is a better way of targeting subsidies effectively. What I'm reading in this as a layman is that cross-subsidies versus electricity duty is interchangeable. You cannot impose both. That's what the National Tariff Policy is suggesting. Okay, the last couple of points here. Implementation and calculation of issues of electricity duty for open access consumers needs clarity. And that is a point which I had raised earlier on. And before I conclude, please remember, if you're a normal consumer of a DISCOM, you're paying your electricity duty in the tariff, and you're doing the cross-subsidy as a paying consumer towards a, shall we say, lesser paying consumer. However, in open access, you have two more levies coming in. You have the cross-subsidy surcharge as well as the electricity duty on open access, which was not there before. Without further ado, may I now request our next speaker on the agenda, Suhas, to take over. Suhas, here to me. Thank you.